So anyway, so look, we spoke about climate change in the first one. When I say that we did, I did. And when I give these talks, I always ask if there's anybody who doesn't believe in you just do what you need to do. I ask if there's anybody who doesn't believe in human-induced climate change. Now, I only talk to groups like this. Nobody ever puts their hand up and says, no, I don't believe in human-induced climate change. But I was very fortunate to be asked to speak at a conference dinner in Canberra about 18 months ago. And it was an interesting conference. It was put on by the ANU. And what climate scientists now are doing is saying, well, you know, the science is over, even though there's debate. You know, that example I gave of me being on the science show, the fact that you have to have balance in an argument. Even though on one side there's the truth and the other side there's lies and nonsense, you've still got to balance the truth with something, which is an absurdity. And the BBC in England, about a month ago, mandated that they don't have to have balance around the climate change issue anymore. They don't have to have people coming on telling lies and talking nonsense. And that's a wonderful step forward. I mean, if we do that here, Andrew Bolt will say that's an assault on free speech. But it's obviously not an assault on free speech, it's an assault on lying. That's not a bad thing to assault, really. But this conference was taking the science one step further, saying that, you know, we've spent 50 years, the science has been in for 50 years, it's much more detailed, it's much more refined, it's the most studied area of science in the history of the world. They know more about the climate and the climate systems than in any other area of science. It's extraordinary what they know and how they know it. So now they're working on how do you convince people, so they're moving into behaviour change. And this conference was opened itself up to 60 people from the Canberra Goulburn area. They put ads in the newspaper saying, would you like to be part of a university program around the idea of climate change and understanding climate change. And then they interviewed a few hundred people, and then they settled on 60, a variety of farmers, self-employed, public servants, unemployed students, a whole range of people. And they interviewed them about their attitudes to climate change, and then they took them to the university for 3 days. And each day they'd be exposed to 3 or 4 top Australian climate scientists, not about just climate science, but about the issues of food sustainability and security, the health implications of climate science, and I'll come to those a little bit later on. And at the end of each session, they'd fill in a form saying how their attitudes had changed. Now, I got to speak to them at the end of the first day. And there's 60 people in the dining room at the ANU, and I asked, does anybody not believe in human-induced climate change? And one man only put his hand up. His name was Doug. I can't remember, but let's call him Doug. And he was a farmer. And he said, I don't believe that we're changing the climate. And I said, well, okay, Doug, we'll just put your name up on the board. We put Doug up on the board. And he was first in our list of people we should eat. Okay? People we should eat first. Okay? That's what we do with these people now. Okay? And I'll get to the reason for that in a moment. And I said to Doug, look, don't worry about climate change, Doug. Just leave that aside. We'll just forget all about climate change. Let's talk about some of the things that really matter, like oil. You see, the oil is running out. And what people don't understand is the oil is running out. You can tell people that the oil is running out, but what people don't understand is the oil is running out. And oil is everything. It's not just the car you drive, it's not just the truck that brings you food, it's 500,000 products in use today through the petrochemical industry. It's in the tablets you take for your headaches. It's in my shirt. I'm poor. I shop at Kmart. It's made from oil. My shoes have got oil in them. Well, this is most chairs you see have got oil in them. It's in carpet. It's in ping pong balls are made from oil. Now close your eyes for a moment. I can see if you haven't closed them. Close your eyes and try and imagine a world without ping pong balls. What will the Chinese do at the weekend if there are ping pong balls? They'll probably invade Australia just to keep their interest up. It's everywhere. Basketballs, the insides of footballs, everything is derived from oil. Now this is a graph. You probably didn't think you'd come here and see a graph this evening, but this is a very common graph. It applies to many things in life. It's called the bell curve graph. It applies to oil, because oil, like everything else on the planet, is finite. The most significant thing I ever saw in my life is people came to me on my deathbed and said, what is the one thing you saw in your life that meant the most to you? And I would say it was that first photograph of Earth taken from space. That was that moment when I realised that when the oil runs out, we can't go next door and borrow a cup because there's no next door. What we've got is all we've got. And oil is the product of billions and billions or millions and millions of years of the decay of organic matter under heat and pressure. It gets taken ages, and we've taken most of it out of the ground already. We're reaching peak oil. In 1856, in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, a man named Colonel Drake, who wasn't a colonel, just as Lord Monckton isn't really a lord, Colonel Drake struck oil in Pennsylvania. And not long after that, they learned to distill kerosene out of it. Kerosene became the means of lighting the interiors of the world. Up until then, we used whale oil. But with this cheap, easy to get at resource, we stopped whaling. Well, when I say we did, everybody did except the Japanese. They still whale for scientific reasons. They're trying to work out why whales die when you harpoon them. Very difficult science, apparently. So kerosene came along, and then we invented the internal combustion engine. So we had cars and we needed petrol. And you've got to drive them on something, so we got asphalt made from oil so we could drive our cars on oil. Then we had the invention of the aeroplane. There's an aeroplane, brum, 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 an aeroplane. More oil needed for that. Then WW2, the most mechanised war ever in history. More and more oil. And then we got the two-stroke motor mower, and then the leaf blower, and that again, oil. Now today coming down, well, I tell you what, in Bonnie Doon it was $1.49.9 per litre in Bonnie Doon on my way back from Timbertop. The aid said by 2018 it will be $8 a litre, then it'll be 10, then 20, then 30, then 40, then 50, then $100 a litre. Now you yell out stop when it's not worth driving to the Minya winery to see Rod Quantock perform. Very good. Well, thank you, I'm flattered. We got to $7 and then I'm not worth it anymore. Thank you. I assume those people don't have far to come. That's what's going to happen. We've got to that point. And I saw a photograph of a modern operating theatre in a hospital. Photograph, the credit, subtitle thing, whatever they were, the caption, thanks for helping me, the caption on the bottom said 85% of what you see in this photograph is there because of oil. The plastic tubes into the arms, the rubber gloves, the plastic syringes, the face masks, the little things, the funny booties they wear, the plastic casings on the equipment that we can't make, so it has to come from Sweden and Norway and Finland by boat and train and aeroplane and truck and car. Like 85% of what was in that room was there because of oil. The 15% that wasn't there because of oil were the doctor, the nurses and the patient. Okay, and they were made of meat. Okay, now keep that in mind when we get to this topic of peak food. Okay, so the oil is running out. Alright, now people say, well that's fine, we'll get electric cars. There are 2 billion internal combustion engines on the planet today, and somebody's got a vague idea that they'll all become electric somehow. They won't, because the lithium is running out. And I heard the other day that helium will peak by 2020, and helium will be gone. And then all those children's birthdays that used to have balloons up here, balloons hanging down. Where's the joy in floppy hanging down balloons? Who's going to tell the children the helium is running out? So all of these things are running out. We have reached the peak of everything. And the problem, the overarching problem is people. There are too many people. Okay? This is the people graph. Okay, there's the oil graph like that. The people graph is this graph. It just keeps going. In 1880, there were 1 billion people on the planet. By 1930, there were 2 billion people. By 1960, there were 3 billion people. By the 70s, there were 4. By the 80s, there were 5. By the 90s, there were 6. And this, sometime this year, we will reach 7 billion people on the planet, and it's on its way to between 9 and 10 billion people on the planet by the middle of the century. Now, the best way to look at this is that currently there are 350 million tons of people on the planet. 300, this is a good way of measuring people because it takes the sentiment out of it. This is how we should measure refugees. You know, at the moment, you read in the paper 120 refugees arrived off Ashmore Reef, and Tony Abbott's fanning the flames of racism, and people are going, oh, they're terrorists, they're illegals, they've got diseases, they'll steal their jobs, we're all going to be living under Sharia law. But if you read in the paper 9,138 kilograms of refugees arrived today, you wouldn't know what to hell is that. You've got no idea, have you? No idea. I mean, it could be quite a lot. Some of them haven't eaten for weeks. Or it could be just 4 really fat ones from New Zealand. I mean, you just don't know. But by 2050, they say there will be 450 million tons of people on the planet. So we have to get rid of 0 from 0, 0, 5 from 5, 0, 3 from... We have got to get rid of... we've got to get rid of... I can't do it that way, we'll have to do it another... There are 9, 7 by... We've got to get rid of 100 million tonnes of people now. Okay? 100 million tonnes of people now. In fact, what science says that the Earth in its current state is only able to support 2 billion people. If we want to live sustainably, with no growth and no impact on the environment and the ecosystems, 2 billion people. So there's 7 now, 7 billion people, and we've got to get rid of, so L from L is L, L from L is L. Oh, I understand that. We're going to get rid of 5 billion people now. We've got to get rid of 5 billion people now. Now, I always ask, hands up those people who are willing to die tonight for the sake of the planet. Anybody? Great, now that never happened. So we've got, and look, nobody talks, this is the one thing we don't talk about. There is talk about climate change and talk about water, but nobody talks about people. We've got to get rid of 5 billion people now if we want to save the planet, humanity and civilization. I'm the only person talking about it, so I decide who gets to go. Now, I could just go, you, but that would take forever. So initially I thought, when I think big, let's just get rid of all the Chinese. Not because they're Chinese, it's just as a class of humanity, there's a lot of them. If you just say, all the Chinese gone, you've almost got rid of the entire problem. I mean, you'd keep one Chinese person, so Kevin Rudd would have somebody to talk to. But then I thought, I know what's going to happen. Andrew Bolt's going to say I'm racist. So in the end, I thought what we do is we get rid of all the stupid people. We just get rid of them. Now you know them, you've met them, you meet them every day at work, at home and play. You've met them, we get rid of the stupid people. Who are they? Do you read the babies' names in the Herald Sun? Do you read those?